Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman. Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host, Linz.
And I'm your other host, Chris.
How's it going, Chris?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. It's everything's coming up Millhouse.
Ah, classic. Well, before we go any further, we've got some cases of a paranormal, cryptidy nature coming up in the next month or so. So
We do. Don't give away all the secret files.
I'm not gonna give up the specifics here, but before we go any further, I have to present you with something very important.
Okay.
You may need this for our upcoming journey, so
Right.
this is for you.
Yeah. Is this real?
It's real in the sense that it's tangible and you're holding it.
So this is a United States Bigfoot hunting permit, but it does have the caveats that you must register catch within 7 days of capture. Baiting, catch and snare allowed, but leg traps are prohibited.
Yeah.
And this is apparently being issued by the USDA in association with the Forest Service Department of Agriculture.
You're welcome, Chris. You're welcome.
That's fine. Wow, thank you. Is there a story behind this?
No, just, in the future, it may be a thing that we have to do out on the field. So
this is my first official ID.
Yes, you put that in your wallet and you keep that safe. And when the time comes, you whip it out and be
Sorry?
like, yeah, you whip it out. And you tell
I'm
them.
not sure how these two things are connected.
And you ask them if they want to see your Bigfoot.
I was going to say, you know what they say about men with big feet. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, Chris.
Yes.
I'm going to jump right into it here. Oh, before we do, if you want to see any of the images, and there'll be a lot of images from this one, and links and everything, you can see them on our Instagram at d.s.radio. And if you want to see extra things, behind the scenes things, you can also join our
Patreon page.
What's that, Chris?
That's patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. Or if you're too lazy to type that out, I do understand, you can just type in dystopian simulation radio into Google and it is one of the first results.
Woohoo! One of? Oh, competition. All right, Chris, I'm going to jump straight into this case. Because,
Let's go.
Yeah, it's a good one and it's a long one.
That's what she said.
Put that Bigfoot card away. What are you doing? You're so disgusting. I'm trying to be professional here. So, Chris.
Yes.
In 1961, John C. Lilly published a book titled Man and Dolphin. This book, pertained to Lily's research into communicating with dolphins. When once interviewed about this research, he was asked, "What do dolphins communicate about?" To which he quickly replied, "Food, danger, and sex," which is also the upcoming title of my autobiography. No, I'm just kidding. So, Chris, who is John Lilly, I hear you ask?
Who is John Lilly?
Well, Lilly was a lot of things. To name a few of those things, he was a physician, a neuroscientist, a psychoanalyst, and philosopher. And he spent a big chunk of time philosophizing on his longing to communicate with animals. So Lilly started out attempting to communicate with domesticated animals such as dogs and cats. Boring. He soon realized that he needed a creature with a much larger brain than those pea-brained pets he'd been wasting his time on. So he set his sights on something more magnificent, the dolphin. Chris, take a look at these big brain boys.
Oh, wow. Those are some quite big brains. Is the left one a human brain?
Yeah, that's us and that's them on the right.
Oh, wow. So they've actually got larger brains than we do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I didn't think this at the time of looking at the picture. But the only thing that's coming to my mind is breasticles and testicles to describe that brain.
Yeah, yeah, they do have sex on the brain. Our brains are, I mean, they call it grey matter, but that's very pink.
Yeah. I don't know if they preserve in different states or what, or if one is older than the other. But yeah, the dolphin brain is a very strange. You can see they have a little underbrain.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a much more clearly, both brains have got a sort of crack in them, if you will, running up the middle, but the dolphin one is much more clearly defined than the human one.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it looks like really split into two parts, whereas the human one still looks like one round sort of brain. So pop quiz, Chris. Which creature has the biggest brain?
Ooh. You see, I'm tempted to say something like an elephant or the blue whale, something like that. But then, dinosaurs, they were huge and quite famously had rather small brains. Whether they were actually the size of the pea or not, I don't know. But they famously didn't have large brains. So, I mean, I would have thought the dolphin might be up there. But I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna go aquatic. I'm gonna say blue whale.
Yep, sperm whale.
Ah, sperm whale.
Yeah, so you're pretty much right. Which creature has the smallest brain?
One of us.
Well, it's probably not you.
Smallest brain. So something that's actually a brain as we know it here, not like an amoeba or something that has.
Yeah.
Like a water bear.
I'll put you out of your misery. A ragworm.
Ragworm.
Yeah.
Are those things that live at the bottom of the ocean?
I don't really know.
Oh.
I'm trying to
Great research.
You know what? I did know at the time, and I read all about it, and then things happened.
Hey Siri, what is a ragworm?
Aragua State is located in the north-central region of Venezuela. It has plains and jungles and Caribbean beaches.
Thanks, Siri.
Can I change my my answer to what has the smallest brain to Siri?
Which creature has the most brains?
The most brains? Creatures have more than one?
Yep.
I know like cows have multiple stomachs. I'm going to say like octopus or something. Just like it'd have like a tiny dependent brain that controls each arm?
A leech.
A leech?
Yeah, guess how many?
27.
32.
Fuck off.
They also have 9 pairs of testicles, 10 stomachs, and lots of teethies.
What? What a... For a slug?
A leech.
A leech, sorry. For a leech?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, they only do one thing.
I think they do a lot of things.
I forgot they're famous for the arts, aren't they?
So before we get into today's story, a few facts about dolphins. They barely sleep. Dolphins are unihemispheric sleepers, meaning one half of the brain rests while the other half remains aware. Some other animals like whales and birds also rest in this way.
That makes sense. That's why they've got a much more pronounced separate sides of the brain.
They have names and they refer to each other by their names. Only the name is more of a whistle, which they use to identify themselves. So if you record a dolphin's signature whistle and play it, the others will respond.
Wow.
Yeah. They like to get high AF. No, they don't smoke seaweed.
Oh, yeah. They puff a fish.
Yeah, actually, yeah, exactly. They microdose on pufferfish by playing slow motion games of football with them under the water. And there's over 40 species of dolphin.
Really?
Mm-hmm. My favourites are the Yangtze River dolphin, aka Sad Boy, which unfortunately there isn't many of. There's thought to be less than 10 in existence, and here's a picture of one, Chris. Say what you see.
Yeah, it looks very sad. It's just sort of like, it looks like it's on its way to a business meeting and it really, really, really can't be bothered.
Yeah, slap a tie on that and the whole picture makes sense.
Salaryman.
I also like the Orinoco River dolphin, aka Weird Flesh Duck.
Oh, that's got too many folds. And also, it's like because of the folds in its face, it looks like it's smiling.
Yeah, Weird Flesh Duck.
Oh, that's quackers.
And the Amazon River dolphin, aka the Pink Maniac.
This dude. Oh, right. So this is like a nightmarish version of a dolphin. This is like, so it is a dolphin. It's very recognizable as one, but all the colors are off. So it's gray on the top and pink on the bottom. But the pink is like human flesh pink.
Yeah, it's like a sunburned white person pink.
Yeah, it's gammon. So it very much looks like a sort of hybrid of some horrible crossbreeding program between human and dolphin.
Which I guess things that live in the Amazon they have evolved kind of weirdly to live in, flooded areas and lakes and also on land. And this Amazon dolphin has like a kind of bulbous lump on the front of its head. It's got like a really long beak and like rows of little sharp teeth. And I actually watched a video on, I think it was Instagram, and it's like this family's house and the Amazon is flooded. And one of these dolphins is basically in their living room. It looks terrifying.
This is my house now.
Yeah, the kids are even screaming.
But wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you walked into your house just like, come on kids, let's make some...
And then the Pink Maniac is poking his head out of the water, just where your carpet used to be.
Hello, Clarice.
And last but not least, the Irrawaddy dolphin, aka Little Baby Man.
This is my favorite. This one looks like somebody described a dolphin to an alien who didn't know what a beak was. And so this dolphin is actually, of the ones that you've shown me, the closest to looking like a dolphin, like a bottlenose dolphin, like the one that you're probably thinking about right now.
Yeah.
But it's completely absent of the beak, the snout at the front. So it just sort of ends and just has a mouth.
And it looks really squished.
It looks like it's just...
Little baby man.
It's a little baby man.
Do you know how long dolphins live, Chris?
I guess it will vary by species, but I'm going to say 20 to 30 years.
Some bottlenose dolphins can live up to 60 years.
Wow.
But on average, it's 40 to 60, depending on the type. And, for example, like orcas can live between 10 to 40 years. And an orca is technically a dolphin.
Yes.
Yeah, so it varies on species, like you said. But yeah, that's a bunch of dolphin facts. Now, back to John Lilly. So around the time Lilly was conducting this research, an American astronomer and astrophysicist named Frank Drake was heading a government-funded team of astronomers in a project called Project Ozma to search and attempt to communicate with extraterrestrial life forms via interstellar radio waves. They basically searched for signals using these big radio telescopes.
Like SETI telescope things.
So Lilly's work caught Drake's attention because Drake was interested in what obstacles could potentially be when attempting to communicate with another species of intelligent life. So this really strange link had been made between Drake and Lilly decided to take the opportunity to gain some funding for his research, which he did manage to get from both NASA and the US Navy.
Go Lilly.
Go Lilly!
Yeah.
Or
that's hustle.
we wish you hadn't gone Lilly.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So using this funding, he built himself this insane lab in the Caribbean, specifically St. Thomas of the Virgin Islands. They got dolphins from Marineland or Marine Studios, which was one of the first marine mammal parks in Florida. It was basically a really huge aquarium, and swimming with dolphins was one of the crowd-pulling features of this place. So the dolphins Lily acquired were movie stars, and they'd been in Flipper.
Oh, so was there a reason why he specifically went for dolphins that were, for want of a better word, domesticated, as opposed to just a wild dolphin? That was it because they're more docile, or?
Yeah, probably because they're more docile, and you wouldn't have to catch them.
And that as well.
I guess, would he have got them donated? Possibly.
I just think it seems strange. You'd think it would be the other way around, that you wouldn't think that a theme park would be, or that researchers would be acquiring dolphins from a theme park. You'd think it'd be the other way around. Because, as you say, they were a top attraction.
But he was interested in dolphins communicating with humans rather than each other.
Oh, that makes sense.
And, he was used to testing on cats and dogs and everything. So it just seems to be how he rolled. So Lilly then puts together his team, which included the likes of English linguist, anthropologist and social scientist, among many other things, Gregory Bateson. Bateson was more interested in how the dolphins communicated with each other rather than how they communicated with the humans who would be living around them. John Lilly had invested all of his money in this dolphin house and promised to get these amazing results that he ultimately was unable to fulfill. Which was a massive issue because he basically had thrown away all of his old life to gamble it on this mad plan completely. He'd sold all of his property to buy the land and build a dolphin house. He'd quit his job at the National Institute of Health, where he'd been working as a neuropsychologist, testing on monkeys to map the neural regions of the brain that activate various emotions such as pain, pleasure and fear. The experiments are probably as horrible as you're imagining. So from monkeys, he moved on to dolphins and killed several of them in the process by accidentally suffocating them while administering anesthetic.
What was his end game here, though? So he's invested all of his money. Mm-hmm. So obviously step one is acquire this dolphin house. Yeah. Which sounds like a really fucked up Netflix series. And then step 3 is profit. But so he can recoup this money back that he's invested? What's in the...
I think he genuinely wanted to know. We will get into this more as we go along into the story, but he genuinely wanted to communicate with these dolphins. And I think he felt like it was his kind of calling.
Fair enough.
Yeah, to do so. Instead of the work he'd been doing at the lab, he was there was too many restrictions for him, so he wanted to go it alone, and it was basically just sell everything, get funding, and make this work. But to get funding, you've got to produce results, which is where things usually go wrong.
And bearing in mind, he's trying to get... this just seems so bizarre from the outset, because he's acquired funding from
NASA and the
Navy, who are doing it so that it will help research where they could potentially find aliens and communicate with them in the future. So it's this is weird. The UFOs are funding, dolphin research.
The link didn't make much sense to me. I was that was a different time, wasn't it? So, like I said, from monkeys he moved on to dolphins, killed several of them in the process by accidentally suffocating them while administering anesthetic. Dolphins are not automatic breathers like us. They have to consciously take each breath. They can go underwater for several minutes, but since they're mammals, they have to return to the surface to breathe. So back to the team. Let's welcome Margaret Howe.
Hi, Margaret. How are you?
Margaret Howe was 22 years old when she first rocked up to the lab. She had left school and come to St. Thomas on vacation and heard about the lab and the dolphins and decided to barge her way in. She tells Lily that she wants to help, so he hands her a notebook and pen and tells her to observe and record what she thinks is going on between the dolphins. She ends up being allowed to access the lab and the dolphins to observe them on a sort of volunteer basis. And she really goes on to immerse herself.
Okay.
The dolphins. There was 3 dolphins, 2 females and 1 male. The females were Pamela and Sissy. Great dolphin names. The male was Peter.
Pamela, Peter, and Sissy.
The worst dolphin name.
Do you remember one that used to be around here? It was Freddy.
Freddy? Why was it Freddy?
I don't know. When I was a kid, there was Freddy the dolphin who just lived off the coast.
Yeah, no, didn't he die?
I think he was hit by a motorboat, I think.
Oh no! Freddy.
Yeah.
Poor dolphins. Yeah. We don't deserve them. So the male was Peter. He was younger, at 6 years old, and he was really energetic and eager to interact with people. Pamela, or Pam, did not like people and was actually seemingly afraid and stressed by them. It took her a year or so to even approach a team member. The two females were able to make these sort of, well, I wouldn't call them human-like, but I suppose human-like for a dolphin noises, using their blowholes. I believe this is something they were trained to do at the park in Miami, as dolphins usually just whistle and click when they're above the surface. So Peter was younger than the two females, and he didn't have this training, and it's for this reason that Margaret Howe decided to specifically work with Peter. At this point, Lily wasn't really at the lab, as he had other things to tend to, like fundraising from NASA, I imagine. So it was just this small team who were left behind to carry on with the research. So basically, Howe would throw out simple commands spoken slowly, clearly, and very pronounced in English, or she would ask him to say very basic things in English, like counting, for example. And Peter would basically squeak back in some kind of, I don't know, something resembling those sounds to the best of his ability. Essentially, he was good at inflection, but not so good at pronunciation. But honestly, are we surprised? I mean, he has a blowhole to work with.
Is that what I didn't know that's where they... Or is that where they make human-like noises? But
normally they wouldn't do that.
No, right.
Yeah, but they, as creepy as it sounds, the blowhole does have some kind of semblance of like lips to it, if you look at it. So Margaret ends up going kind of like SOD, speak English or die on Peter. And I'm going to show you a clip now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
These are the audio recordings she made.
Today is August 18. This is the morning lesson with Peter. Hello. Hello. Clearly, Peter. What's on? Come on.
I didn't talk to Peter the way I talked to you. I spoke in single words usually and made inflection, something that he could follow. That they were very good at. The enunciation was not good. But if I said 1, 2, 3, I wouldn't get 1, 2, 3, but I would get 1,
2, 3.
M is very difficult. My name, hello, Margaret, I worked on. And M is just impossible. But he eventually rolled over so that it kind of, he would bubble it into the water.
Margaret.
Oh, he just couldn't get it right. And he just would try and he would try. God. His blowhole and my mouth sort of were trying to do the same thing. I actually put a white makeup, thick white and black around my mouth, so that when I was talking to him or teaching a word, he could really see my blowhole, as it were, and I would really use my mouth with this makeup on it. And his eye was in air looking at my mouth. I mean, there's no question about it. He wanted to know, where is that noise coming from? What is that sound?
Fish in bucket.
Well, that was a thing.
Yeah.
He was really interested in her blowhole. I mean, it's quite an interesting endeavor, though, isn't it? Trying to teach another species to speak English, and
I just don't like it. I feel like there's other ways. Like, why does he have to? I don't get it.
Oh, I wonder if it would have had any more success with other languages, because English is a very difficult language.
Especially if you're a freaking dolphin.
Well,
you can't even make those sounds. Like,
that is an extra level of difficulty, yeah.
Like a monkey, there's those monkeys who have learned a bit of sign language.
Yeah.
They've actually learned the concept of what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's what is happening here.
No, it's just mimicry.
Exactly. This is something that they'll go on to criticize Margaret for.
It's an interesting endeavor, though. I mean, could dolphins communicate? Possibly, but I think they're at a major disadvantage when she's saying that he's got a blowhole that, that's functioning like lips, but he doesn't have a tongue, he doesn't have vocal cords, he doesn't have anything else that's happening behind those lips.
Yeah, and does it help you to understand, like, if he understands the concept, or is it just, I make this noise, I get a fish, like...
Yeah.
It's not really a concept. It's just like, oh, this is the command to get the thing.
I mean, with like certain types of parrots or minor birds and things, I don't know because I've got no experience with them, but are they just mimicking or can they learn to have a meaningful conversation, if that makes sense?
I don't, like, birds are like, okay, a dolphin is a social animal.
Yeah.
They do socialize and things, but birds, I don't think they want to socialize with us. Like, okay, people do have pet parrots that like to be around them and stuff, but I don't know. It just seems very strange to me. Like, I don't know what you'd get out of it. Like, what's different between what they're doing, what Margaret Howe is doing there and what they're doing at SeaWorld? Like jump through hoops, say a thing for a fish.
Well, that's it's a different type of trick that you're teaching them.
Yeah, like it's...
The only difference is it's for an audience of one.
It's research. So Margaret Howe wasn't content with just visiting Peter during the day, and she was baffled that a team of people researching communication between humans and dolphins would just clock out after work and leave the animals floating around in their pool all night. So she had a brainwave of her own and came up with the plan that Lily signed off on. Any ideas what that might have been, Chris?
So was this Margaret's plan, did he say?
Mm-hmm.
That she would live there 24/7?
Marge plastered the entire upper floor of the lab, made it waterproof, semi-flooded the entire thing, and hauled Peter up on a makeshift elevator so she could live with him full-time.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, she did move in.
Yeah, I guess you were right.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of it, Chris, of Margaret and Peter, and she's cut her hair, I guess, to make it a bit easier. If you could describe to the listeners what you're looking at there, Chris. These will be on the Instagram too, so check that out.
So Margaret is sat on a sort of a swivel chair, the type you might find in like a breakfast bar or something like that. And then Peter is down at her feet, and the room has been flooded up to, I'd probably say, shin height. Not particularly large. He couldn't, dive down or anything. She's got her foot resting on top of him, and she's got a notepad in hand, presumably taking notes as to what's going on. There's also on the side, there's a telephone and a stack of papers and so on. So there's this dolphin level, which is all submerged in the water, and then everything else is kind of above that. And she's in some form of, either it's a wetsuit or it's clothes that have been rolled up to the thigh, so that she doesn't get wet, I guess.
Yeah, a merging of two worlds,
yeah,
which looks really weird.
It does. I mean, imagine if everyone's office was like that. If all of your stuff was at like head level, because dolphins existed below there.
And you'd have trench foot, I'm pretty sure. Like, she's got no shoes on, she's just going around.
True. Yeah.
So, according to Margaret, she went around in wet clothing and slept on this sort of suspended bed with what started out as dry pillows and blankets that would eventually get wet, of course. They made some edits to make living more comfortable, including an area without water that Margaret could go to, as well as a deeper water for the dolphin to swim in, since it was previously only shin high, like you said. They also had to add in a sort of vacuum filter to eliminate wastes, as dolphins go, like, a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever had a couple of goldfish in a fish tank, you have to clean that a lot. Imagine a dolphin. They go all the time.
Yeah, if you go away for like a weekend, you come back and the water's like...
Yeah, you're like,
black.
Oh my God.
You're like, where are you guys?
She did make a note in her personal diary, parts of which were later published in one of Lily's books, that she at times got very depressed with the living situation she had created for herself, which is understandable. I mean, I can't imagine wading around in water with wet clothes and sleeping on a damp bed. It just sounds miserable. Nobody at the lab was really impressed with Margaret's work to teach a dolphin English. It was basically just teaching the animal to mimic, like you said earlier, Chris, which other animals can do. And Peter didn't have a grasp of human language and wasn't really learning how to convey or understand things in that sense. Gregory Bateson thought Margaret wasn't really contributing anything by trying to teach the dolphin English. He wanted to know what their language and style of communication was, which was more valuable to him. So they did discover some things about dolphin communication. One article from the Miami Herald, published in 1964, reads,
In their natural setting, the dolphins produce two basic sounds, whistles and varying types of clicks, and they can do both simultaneously, the Communications Research Institute discovered. Dr. Lilly and his co-workers found that a very short, sharp series of loud clicks may indicate anger. Another special type of clicking, often described as the creaking of a rusty hinge, seems to be associated with food findings. Research also indicates the dolphins use the clicks as a type of sonar for locating and identifying objects, and then for telling other dolphins in the area of their findings. The dolphins' sonar abilities are so great that the Navy has supported much research into how they make such fine distinctions between objects underwater.
So these are things that we kind of know today, but at the time, seemingly this was new information. In the late 30s, it was discovered that bats used ultrasonic signals, but it wasn't until around the mid-50s that a curator at Marineland in Florida suspected that the bottlenose dolphins may also have biosonar capability. So various people over the next couple of decades began testing these theories, and one way they would do it is by placing suction cups or blindfolds over the dolphin or porpoise's eyes and setting up mazes for them to navigate their way through, which they always could, by clicking at their surroundings, aka using echolocation. We'll put some further research links on Patreon as well, like links to clips and interesting websites and videos you can look at if you want to know more about that. So Lilly did attempt to teach the dolphins a sort of code using electronic pictures, but it didn't really go anywhere. So that's interesting, like when we did the Is Russia Training Spy Whales episode, we do know that the military these days, they do use dolphins and seals and different types of animals.
Check out that episode if you haven't, Is Russia Training Spy Whales. There is a lot of military applications that dolphins and also a couple of other types of marine animals have as well, and it's largely down to their echolocation abilities.
Yeah, so you can kind of see, like with hindsight, why the Navy were putting money into this research.
Definitely.
And they did utilize it in the future, so that's pretty interesting. All of our episodes are coming back together. Chris.
Yes.
What are you looking at?
I am seeing a tank that is full of water. I can't tell how deep it is exactly, but there is a board running across the top of it, and there is a hose coming down into some kind of a mask that somebody, I'm not sure if this is Margaret or somebody else, is wearing, and they're sort of floating in the tank a la dead body would. They're sort of floating face down, and
it's a jarring image.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. This isn't what I would think of in terms of a conventional breathing apparatus. Mm-hmm. What is it?
Do you see, can you also describe there's 4 pictures under that?
Ugh. This looks like concept art for Metal Gear Solid characters. This is... So, there's 4 images. The first one is what looks like a human with binoculars coming out of his nose. The second one, which is beneath it, looks like a similar sort of image that's just one binocular that's got sunglasses on and is a negative image. The third image appears to just look like a burn victim, and the fourth image looks like a clearer look at the nostril-nosed miscreant. What is this?
Okay, so an interesting fact about John Lilly, he invented the sensory deprivation tank in 1954. He viewed it as a doorway to another universe where the soul could leave the body to go balance out its karma account and neutralize the bad karma.
Oh.
Although Lilly's approach to the sensory tank would become a more spiritual and trippy experience overall, the military were interested in his studies and wanted to know if a person who had been immersed in the tank would be more susceptible to outside influence, i.e., if they could use it for military application, which is likely why they were interested in dolphin communication in general, which, as we know from one of your previous topics, like we said, Chris, the military did eventually use various aquatic animals for military application.
That's horrific. So is this what? That still doesn't answer my question. What the fuck are these things?
So those are just the masks that he made because the other ones were inferior. Like you couldn't comfortably wear them for a long period of time. as you were floating in the tank. He'd be there for a while.
So these things coming out of the nostrils, is that the oxygen would connect to that?
Yeah.
So instead of having it over your mouth, you've got it over your nostrils?
Yeah, I believe so. He was trying out different masks where he could just sit in that tank for longer. So he apparently tried to communicate with dolphins telepathically.
And how did that work out for him?
I don't think it did, Chris. So he would just float in this tank, trying to talk to dolphins with his mind or something.
Did you say that the one thing that he needed was results? It sounds like he's literally barking up the wrong tree here. And they're like, God damn it, John, we need results. Oh, God. I better get back in that flotation tank.
So Lily would float in his tank and have these visions where he spoke to what he referred to as ECHO, the ECCO, which stood for Earth Coincidence Control Office. They came to him in the form of 3 entities who he would sort of listen to as they talked telepathically about him between themselves. Essentially, Lily believed that ECHO ran the lives of all humans and were responsible for what Lily called the long-term coincidences of life. He believed these entities mapped out his life as well as guiding him in specific directions. They were responsible for Lily leaving what he deemed to be the constraints of his government job in science and pursuing the Dolphin House for his own studies. He was ushered by ECHO to close up his animal testing habits in favour of a different, less barbaric form of studying the brains of animals, including his own. They also gave him a heads up to file for divorce, as his wife wasn't beneficial to the meeting. Now, I won't go too deeply into ECHO in this episode, as it'll probably be an episode of its own in the future. But what do you think of that, Chris?
Firstly, I would be remiss if I didn't say Echo the Dolphin. How much LSD was he doing?
I think a lot by the end.
Because all of the pieces slot into place. You know, you go into a deprivation tank, you maybe, that can do weird things to you, even without any kind of drugs. But he gets these things that are coming to him and they're telling him that they're responsible for everything that happens in his life and coincidences, and it's just another form of God. People put their faith in whatever you believe in. You believe that there's a pathway that's led out in front of you and you're riding along that pathway. And he's just seeing this in a different fucking weird form here. Echo being behind the scenes and pulling all the strings sounds like a plot of a James Bond film.
So, Chris, can we just take a moment to look at and appreciate John C. Lilly's homepage?
Certainly can do. I see John had this made in 1996 and has not upgraded providers since. At least one of you out there will know what I say when I mean this is GeoCities to the max. Holy shit.
Describe it to the people, please, Chris. So, we will put a picture of it, a screenshot on Patreon and Instagram, so don't worry.
Jesus Christ, this is amazing. Oh, wow. So, this is... there's Echo, front and centre. The background is an infinity repeating image of a dolphin that's been sort of rasterized somewhat, so it looks a bit trippy. And then in the center of the page, we have got John C. Lilly himself, who is there with a kind of psychedelic background behind him, mountains at his neck, and it's being reflected in a pool of water. I am, however, neglecting the most amazing thing about this image, that there is a gif of, what would you even call that?
Like some kind of spiritual symbol.
It's just rotating on his forehead. And to either side of him, he's got 2 dolphins. And then he's just got a bunch of hyperlinks beneath him that are just absolutely, like, at best, 1998. He's got, like, a little image of new stuff, Ciation Nation, which I guess must be his band. I don't want to mock this too much, but this page is quite fantastic. It is apparently maintained by the John C. Lilly Research Institute. So can I just say to them, thank you?
Thank you. It's a real throwback, and it's...
we haven't even talked about the absolute potpourri of colour that the links are on the left-hand side. Which is also accompanied by the exact same image of him with his galaxy brain just hovering above. And also, I just noticed that the oh wow, okay. I just noticed this. Above where it says site maintained by the John C. Lilly Research Institute, there's a sort of Romanesque coin
Yes.
of a naked man riding a dolphin. This is all kinds of perfect.
It's amazing.
Oh.
It's absolutely amazing.
Bookmark.
So we'll put this link in the Patreon also, and you can look further into this website.
I might do a tour of it. I might click around on the Patreon for everybody. I'll see if I can put that up there.
It's amazing. That was John C. Lilly's homepage.
Amazing.
So as we know, it's the 60s, it's the mid-60s at this point, and John Lilly started dropping acid and calling it part of his research, saying LSD could be used to open the mind. And this is where, well, I mean, things were already pretty bonkers, to be honest, but this is where it gets, like, hella bonkers. So Lilly ditches his nerd gear for hippie threads and he starts doing acid in the lab. And Margaret begins having a one-sided, professional sexual relationship with Peter the Dolphin. No, you did not mishear me, Chris.
So many questions about that sentence. One-sided, professional
Yes.
sexual relationship.
Yes.
Do go on.
Apparently Peter would get urges. And eventually Margaret began to, quote, satisfy those urges manually, like an itch you would have to scratch so you could move on with the research.
So, are you just telling me that she got so frustrated with the research that she thought she'd try wanking off a dolphin?
Yes. Basically, the dolphin would get so excited and distracted that she's like, oh God, let's get this over with. Wow. Let's keep in mind, this is some lady who rocked up to the Caribbean after dropping out of college and sort of shoehorned herself into this voluntary position, living in a semi-aquatic environment with a dolphin lover. Oh my God, what even is this sentence?
I mean, there's no such thing as, a free... You've always got to pay the piper somewhere. I'll give you this board, but I've got a dolphin that needs urges. Let's just say we could have a mutually beneficial relationship.
Chris, I have some delightful text for you to read. This is from a diary that Margaret kept. This is published in Lilly's book, The Mind of the Dolphin, a Non-Human Intelligence. Good luck, Chris.
Okay, so here we go. Another thought that I've had on this subject is whether or not it would be best for the human to somehow find a way to satisfy the dolphin's sexual needs without another dolphin. This may strengthen the bond between the dolphin and the human. It may also lead to more and more frequent sexual periods between the two. If Peter knows that I can satisfy his needs, he may feel free to turn any play period or lesson into a sex period. But if he knows that I will not have any part of his sexual needs and once a month he'll be put with Pam or Sissy, he may reduce his excitement periods with me. This would of course be preferable. I will try and see. This is a problem, and it must be solved. I cannot go on having my shins belted around by a little lusty Peter. It hurts.
And later in her journal, Margaret wrote again.
I found that by taking his penis...
Come on, Chris, you can do it. People are just going to clip these sound bites.
So Margaret continues, I found that by taking his penis in my hand and letting him jam himself against me, he would reach some sort of orgasm. Mouth open, eyes closed, body shaking, and his penis would relax and withdraw. He would repeat this maybe 2 or 3 times, and then his erection would stop, and he seemed satisfied. Now, as it happened that Peter had modified his sexual rambunctiousness to a more humanized level, he no longer has to come to a dead stop when he gets excited. Peter's sexual excitement usually begins with the biting business, and then my stroking him. Now, however, when his penis becomes erect, he no longer tries to run me down and knock me off my feet. Rather, he slides very smoothly along my legs, and I can easily rub his penis with either my hand or my foot. Peter accepts either, and again, seems to reach some sort of orgasm and relaxes. We usually go through this 3 times or so before he quits and starts another game. Well, thanks for making me read that in public. Thank you.
Oh, there's more.
This is not a private thing. Peter and I have done this with other people present, but it is a very precious sort of thing. Peter is completely involved, and I involved myself to the extent of putting as much love into the tone, touch, and mood as possible. We do not have to respect his privacy, but we cannot help but respect his happiness. Now, 2 things. I started out afraid of Peter's mouth and afraid of Peter's sex. It had taken Peter about 2 months to teach me, and me about 2 months to learn, that I am free to involve myself completely with both.
What do you think about that?
I think practically on the surface level, okay, you are solving a problem.
No!
But I think if as soon as you go even like a microscopic amount beneath that surface, that is fucked up. Like, imagine if you went to the zoo and the elephant trainers were like, okay, everybody, we've got to close for lunch where we have to wank off the elephant so that he'll be docile for the afternoon's viewings. Like she said, she had the answer there. Just let him get busy with the other dolphins.
Chris.
Worst case scenario, you got some more dolphins.
Exactly. And don't you want to... I know it's about communication between a dolphin and a human. They're like, okay, but you're basically relieving a dolphin so you can continue to teach it to mimic sounds.
Like,
it's not worth it, Margaret.
no, like, I feel like Margaret may have dropped some LSD as well. And
Actually, she was not
really?
into the LSD. This was all sober. So, Lily, you kind of like, Lily
see, that's kind of
dropped
worse.
a lot of acid, but Margaret's on a sober head here.
I thought you were going to say like, no, you dropped a bunch of acid and, kind of woke up the next morning and the dolphin was lying next to her with a cigarette and just going...
In blowhole.
We did what?
Now, that would be a successful result, but that didn't happen, Chris. Now, your pain does not end here.
Oh, no.
So, Chris, if you could look at this picture and, just because for scientific research purposes, we don't know what it looks like. So, if you would, this is from Lily's book.
Okay, so here we have an image, a black and white image of a dolphin, which is in water at the surface, lying on its back. And most of its body the upper half of its body is out of the water. It's looking up, and also its little Peter is looking up as well. It is quite erect in this picture, and the description beneath it says, Plate 44, a male dolphin pulling on a rope with his erect penis as he swims backward from the edge of the pool. The figure shows the shape of the erect penis of a dolphin, i.e. it resembles a miniature dolphin. In its colour is bright red. The dolphin can voluntarily erect his penis in about 7 seconds and voluntarily collapse it in the same time.
Just another dolphin fact for you.
As if I didn't have enough to take away from this episode.
So this whole operation was, they weren't really discovering anything significant in terms of what their sponsors likely wanted. So by 1965, the funding starts to get pulled.
It wasn't the only thing that was getting pulled.
In response, John Lilly decides what really needs to be done is to inject the dolphins with LSD.
Obviously. And how did that work out for him?
Peter was spared of this experiment due to Margaret's insistence, and both Pamela and Sissy were injected instead. Nobody knew what effects this would have on the dolphins, and clearly didn't seem to care about the risks. Although for humans, anyways, it's really rare to overdose on LSD. Physically, it's a possibility, and it's not recommended to take a butt ton of anything. They really didn't know what it would do to a dolphin, though. Pamela and Sissy were given a 200 microgram dose of LSD. A tab of acid is usually between 100 to 200 micrograms.
Oh, so they were just starting at the top then.
Which is non-toxic to a human. So overdosing is rare. People have taken a lot more and survived. But you're advised to seek medical attention if you take too much and start vomiting, for instance, or having suicidal thoughts and behaviours, or symptoms of psychosis, issues with breathing, etc. So Chris, what do you think happened to the dolphins?
So they went belly up and died?
Well, nothing happened.
Oh.
Lily tried to freak them out by using a jackhammer he found near the pool, but still nothing happened.
Wait, what? What?
I said, when nothing happened,
Lily tried to freak them out using a jackhammer he found near the pool.
Why was there a jackhammer near the pool? I mean, those are
I don't know, I guess they were constantly building this big lab thing and there was just
adding more wings to it.
maybe. God knows what they were doing. They were doing all sorts of things, Chris.
Okay.
When Bateson found out that Lily, who at this point also looked like a massive hippie, had been injecting the dolphins with LSD, he packed up and noped out. He spent a total of 18 months there, I believe. Lily stopped caring about communicating with the dolphins and was more interested in LSD, which is unsurprising. He was also up to the gills in debt.
Hey.
The lab was closed down and the dolphins were flown to a dingy, cramped lab to stay in small tanks and horrific, stressful conditions. A few weeks later, Margaret was informed that Peter had committed suicide.
How does a dolphin commit suicide?
He had chosen to stop breathing.
Oh.
This is something dolphins who can no longer endure bad conditions in situations do. Kathy the dolphin, who played Flipper, also died in this way after being kept isolated in a pen in Miami. In fact, Kathy died while her trainer, Rick O'Barry, held her. Rick O'Barry was actually a dolphin trainer who caught several dolphins who starred in Flipper. He's now an animal rights activist. Check out his documentary The Cove from 2009.
I've seen The Cove. It's horrific.
It's horrific, yeah. If you want to know more, check that out. But it's a hard watch.
Yeah.
It's a really hard watch, and it actually really broke me, but check it out if you're interested and you want to know more about how people obtain dolphins.
Wasn't Rick O'Barry, wasn't he involved in the episode on spy whales? Wasn't he involved with Valdemir?
Probably.
I think it was him.
Yeah, he gets around.
I think he flew over to consult on it as the dolphin.
Yes, I think you're right.
Former dolphin trainer turned activist.
So to end this on a good note, Lily eventually released the remaining dolphins back into the wild and acknowledged what he did was wrong and that they deserved their freedom. He went the way of Rick O'Barry and became something of an animal activist himself. Margaret actually continued to live in the building for the next 10 years.
Peterless.
She raised kids there and married the photographer who famously took the pictures of her interacting with Peter.
Oh.
And that's the story of Peter the Dolphin and his gang of weird-ass humans.
So really, this is more of a story of Lily just dropping a bunch of LSD and doing weird shit, while Margaret is upstairs in the penthouse suite tossing off a dolphin. So that's mental. That's the only that could only happen like in the 60s.
Yeah.
There's just so many weird elements to it. Firstly, he gets funding that is hopefully going to help to inform NASA on communication with other life forms in the future.
I.e. aliens.
To build this hippie commune in the Virgin Islands that he just keeps adding to. And then this woman rocks in and is just like, oh, hi, I'm 22 and I can toss off dolphins. And he's like, I've got a job for you. And then he's just like, well, I guess my tossing off job has been taken. I'm just going to drop a bunch of LSD. And then at the end of it, they're all just like, well, what he did was wrong. Let's just become animal activists.
Yeah, that's what happened. But he did create the sensory deprivation tank, which was very interesting. And yeah, the military application of dolphins probably, they probably looked at that and went, yeah, could probably use them. But, I mean,
it's interesting in so much as contributing to echolocation, understanding that kind of stuff.
There was people already doing that,
exactly.
Not dragging off dolphins and giving them the LSD. So,
yeah. I think that's where it comes down.
This was just some weird stuff gone too far. Like, I don't know what this was, but this story was recommended to us by...
It was recommended to us by one of our listeners, Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Dave from Hokkaido, who recommended this insane story.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was really interesting to research. There is a documentary on it. I think the BBC. It may be called "The Girl Who Talks to Dolphins." Mm-hmm. So you can look that up too.
And what's Margaret's opinion now on all of this?
I think she still believes that she was communicating with Peter and that they obviously did have a close bond.
Yeah.
But
I can see
and she's very embarrassed by the whole sexual relationship with the dolphin thing because it got sensationalized in an article that was in some magazine, like Hustler magazine or something, and they had drawn this artwork to go along with it, and it was like a naked woman pressed up against the underside of a dolphin swimming down into the depths, and she was really embarrassed by it, but because she really did see it as research and this clinical thing, and
I mean, it makes sense. Like, like I said, on the very surface level, you've got a problem. You're trying to conduct research, so you need to solve this problem to continue your research.
But step back and look at what you're doing.
Exactly.
And to know that, I don't know, I think...
She, in her writing that you very, very kindly let me read out loud.
That's my favourite thing we've ever done.
In public. Thank you. She seems to be reluctant to solve it with conventional means, i.e. letting him go and be with his own kind.
Well, they were taking him down there, but I think it was eating up too much of the precious research time. So she's like, I'll do it.
Well, that's she seems to as well be sort of saying, like, yes, it would solve it, but also it would make our time less special together. And that's the weird element.
Yeah, that's strange. It's like...
I mean, if it was me...
It's tricking him into, like, people were saying that Peter was in love with her. Like, that's how they described it.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what I probably would have done would be is they're just building more and more onto this commune that they're building. I probably just would have built a dolphin sex slide. That when he was horny, it was like, right, Peter, get on the slide, and he'd just go woo all the way down.
That's the first thing I pictured when you said ad. I was like, oh, like a slide.
Yeah, it'd have lots of twists and turns in
Wet
it.
and wild.
Yeah, wet and wild.
They could just buy Wet and Wild.
Yeah, exactly. And then when he'd come out the end of the flume, and then there would be Pamela and Sissy there, and be like, hello, ladies.
And they're like, oh God, it's him again.
Then we just have to winch him up again.
Yeah.
So it's problem solved, Margaret.
Yeah.
Should have asked me. I'm just tossing off a mammal.
Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. And yeah.
If you dare want to see the images of this, you can head over to our Instagram at d.s.radio. As we mentioned during the episode, we'll post a couple of more long-form things over on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. So if you want to, you can sign up there. We've got an entry level that is just a very small amount of money that you can get a shout out on the podcast. But if you want to see all of this extra stuff, that's the £5 level. Or you can get access to all of the behind the scenes things that we pop on.
If you want Chris to read some dolphin fanfic, feel free to write it and... Yeah.
Okay. If, and only if, immediately following this episode, at least 10 people sign up to the Patreon in any form, I will read Dolphin Erotica.
I'm going to make 10 accounts. Just sign up. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a total pleasure. This has really lifted my spirits.
Don't use the word pleasure.
It's been so pleasurable to do this episode with you, Chris.
Only Peter got pleasured in this experience.
Don't lie.
I'm going to go and take my newly minted Bigfoot, my newly minted Bigfoot hunting permit. Oh,
I think you're a bit flustered, Chris.
just having my LSD this morning. So I'm going to go and take my newly minted Bigfoot hunting permit and put it to good use. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Splish, splash. I think I looked at your face in the right. So before we get into today's...